Okay, so we're going to do vocab lesson 3, and you guys should have out this page on Schoology. Can somebody tell me what prim or prince means as a root? It says, somebody tell me what it means. Yes, dear.
A Latin root that means first. Another way to spell the prefix prince.
Yes, so prim or prince means first, and it tells you, when you think of this, think of primary. So my kids, my oldest son goes to primary school. Primary school is the first grades that you go to, okay? So prim or prince, and we're going to write over here that it means first. And if we want to know that, it is Latin. It is a Latin root, okay? Remember, you are not going to be graded on, you're not going to be assessed on is it Greek or is it Latin, but it's important to know where it comes from, okay? When you see a word and it has prim or prince in it, it's going to somehow relate to being the first, okay? So let's focus on that. So the very first sentence that we have, it says humans, apes, and monkeys belong to the highest order of mammals called primates, okay? A primate, the definition of primate is any of the first mammals. They are the first things that have the opposable thumbs, right? Your thumbs can grab things, okay? So the first mammals, or the highest order with advanced brains. So we will look at the next sentence. It says, many of the ancient trees in the primeval forest of the Muir Woods National Monument near San Francisco, California, are more than 600 years old. Okay, so the word there was primeval, okay? And that is related to the first age, especially when it deals with the world. So like you could have like fossils or like 600-year-old trees, like very, 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 very old things in nature. That is primeval. It's the first ones around. So a lot of times you'll hear like, we went primitive camping in the woods. And what that means is if you go primitive camping or you stay at like a primitive cabin, that means you have like no electricity or anything like that. Here's the sentence that it gives to you. Scientists believe that Yellowstone National Park's famous geyser, Old Faithful, may be home to a primitive life form, a very, very early kind that thrives in hot springs. So something that is primitive is something that is related to the earliest or first age. Very, very first kind. Like if you're going camping and you're going primitive camping, you don't have electricity because back in those days they never had electricity, so that would be what primitive is like. Okay, the next word is principality. In the sentence from the book page, Prince Albert II is the ruler of Monaco, a tiny principality on the French Riviera. A principality is a small state or country ruled by a prince, and a prince is like, if you're prince, you are the first royal son. Okay, and then the very last, prim and prince, meaning first, the very last word on that list is principal, not a principal, as in Mr. Mon and Mrs. Brown. It is a principal. And what that is, the Declaration of Independence sets forth the basic principles of American democracy, those most important beliefs of freedom, equality, and the rights of individuals. So principles is like a first truth, a first belief of a nation or like of a group. Basically, it is the foundation for other, like how things are built. All right, so the next ones that we have are SEQU and SEC. And those ones, if you will go to your book pages, can somebody tell me what those ones mean? Yes, dear.
a Latin root that means follow. Another way to spell the root is sect.
Yes. So you have to follow, and again, this one is also Latin, okay? So the first one was first. The second one is follow, and this is also Latin, okay? Now, these are going to be words that you're going to, like, you'd heard of primates, probably heard of primitive or principles. There are a lot more here that you may have noticed. But the issue is like, you know the definitions, but you may not understand how the word, like the idea of following goes in there. So we're going to write our definitions so that we remember SEQU and SEC means follow. Okay. So what we have is one page because it could not preview the file. Gotta love it. Let's try one more time. And it's still stuck. So I'm just going to leave it here. And is yours working, guys? No, you don't have page 2 either. Awesome. Thankfully, we know some of these roots. So we have this short little story. After performing in consecutive concerts every day for a week, Ramon was exhausted. He wanted to sequester himself in his dressing room so he could rest. Before he could do so, however, an obsequious fan found him in the hallway. It was hard to be rude to such a follower when she wouldn't stop praising his music. And just so you guys know, I am an obsequious fan of the Backstreet Boys. So, consecutive. After performing in consecutive concerts every day for a week, what do you guys think consecutive means? Yes, over and over and over, following one right after the other, okay? Following one right after the other. And I saw a lot of you guys do this with your hands. The next word is obsequious. And again, I am an obsequious Backstreet Boys fan. The definition is, before he could do so, however, an obsequious fan found him in the hallway. This is someone that is like kind of like a stalker. Not really a stalker, we should say. They're not performing illegal activities. However, it is somebody who is like super attentive to somebody that they're following. So super attentive to someone you are following or think is super important. Okay, so like if you pay attention to politics and maybe there's somebody that you really are rooting for, you are super attentive to what they are doing or saying, or you have an athlete that you just love and you just follow everything that they do and you remember this and this and this and this. You are obsequious with that person. Okay. Sequester, the example here is he wanted to sequester himself in his dressing room so he could rest. Also, a lot of times people, like as a mom, sometimes I sequester myself in my room so I can have like 10 seconds to myself. Okay. Oftentimes a jury, when you have court, a jury will sequester themselves, or they will be forced to be sequestered so that they cannot be asked questions about this big trial. Okay. So to be sequestered, it means to keep, okay, it's not typing. There we go. To keep from being followed, or basically to remove yourself from the public. Okay. All right, I'm going to read another story about Mia and Nate, and they are going to teach us about the word persecute here, and then S-E-C-T, a sect. In the first book of that series, Mia and Nate both feel as if their parents persecute them, punishing them for the smallest misdeed. In the story sequel, the two young people plan to leave home and join a sect, a group of people who follow the same beliefs and principles. Okay, so that literally just gave us the definition for sect. S-E-C-T is a group of people who follow the same beliefs or principles. A lot of times you will have a religious sect where everybody follows the same belief system. Okay, the other word we're going to talk about is persecute. In history, groups persecute other groups, right? Bullies also persecute kids because it makes them think that they're powerful, okay? You can also persecute someone to cause them harm, okay? So to persecute someone, the example here is Mia and Nate both feel as if their parents persecute them, punishing them for the smallest deed. Persecuting someone is essentially like a punishment. You are following through on someone in order to cause harm or punishment. All right, and the last story that I'm going to read, and I say story, but it's really just like 2 sentences, but we're going to learn what secondary and subsequently mean, okay? Although his first plan was to bunt, Keegan subsequently hit the ball out of the park. He decided that from now on, his secondary plan would always be to hit the ball as hard as he could. All right, so secondary, a secondary plan, or you could go into secondary education. What's secondary? If primary is first, what's secondary? Second, yeah. Following after the first. Following after the first in order. And then the very last word is subsequently, and it said, although his first plan was to bunt, Keegan subsequently hit the ball out of the park. Subsequently means coming or following after. Okay? Coming or following. Okay, so we know that we have Prim and Prince meaning first, right? We have SEQU and SEC meaning to follow, okay? So we have that. No, using that, we're going to do our vocabulary activity here, okay? You are also going to use that and learn these roots, and you're going to have a quiz over these roots next Friday, okay? So you've got 2 weeks, but you really got to get these roots down because next week we're going to get a new set of vocab, okay? So I'm going to show you where your activity is. If you will go to Schoology and go back to the vocab folder, okay, you are going to go to your vocabulary lesson 3 activities. Now, this is what it will look like. Okay, it's going to look like this. You did one just like this with lesson 1. Which was a couple weeks ago, so I want to remind you. Prim and Prince, you're going to put what it means. You're going to find the picture to represent that root. You can use Google. You're going to find 4 additional words, and it says to use membean. If you remember, we showed you this the other day, or a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to show you this one more time. If you go back to the vocab folder, membean is there. When you click on it, it's this real fancy thing with all of the roots. There's lots of roots. Now, thankfully, they're in alphabetical order. So Prim or Prince is going to be down here. Keep going, P-R-I. There it is. You're going to look for the one, not press. You go with the one that means first. You click on it, and the little tree guy pops up, okay? There's a ton of words here. So when you go to your lesson or your activity and it says 4 words that are not in your textbook, those are 4 words that we did not just write down, okay? So if you go to look at that tree, primarily was not on that list, so you could add that in on your activity, okay? The other thing I also wanted to say was right here when it says use 2 list words from your book in a sentence. Those are those 5 that we just learned that we put the definitions for. Do not go to Google and type in sentence with word primate in it. I will know. Use your own words. Put it together yourself. That's what's going to help you really learn those vocabulary words, and that's what's really going to help you understand what the root is, okay? If you Google it and just copy and paste it from Google, you're not really learning anything, right? Okay? So this is going to be due on Wednesday. So it's Monday. You guys have 2 days to get that done, but I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes in class right now to work on that, okay?